Hey everyone, welcome. So we're going to dive into a really fascinating puzzle from the world of business strategy today. It's this: why does being a wildly successful company so often lead directly to failure? We're going to explore the Innovator solution to figure that out.
And I mean, think about it. We're not talking about poorly run companies here. Nope. We're talking about the titans, right? The market leaders that seem absolutely invincible. So, what gives? Why do they so often lose their spot at the top of the mountain?
You know, the author Clayton Christensen, he just frames this problem perfectly. He says, it's not just management mistakes that cause failure. Certain practices that are essential to a company's success can cause failure too. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? It's not just about making dumb mistakes. The very things that are considered best practice, listening to your best customers, focusing on your most profitable products, those can actually become a deadly trap. That's the paradox we're going to unravel.
All right, so first up, the success to failure paradox. And the crucial point here really is that this isn't some story about incompetence. It's a story about rational, logical decisions made by super smart managers that somehow ultimately lead to their company's downfall. And it's all because the world around them has changed.
So, how do we even begin to make sense of this? Well, the key is understanding that not all innovation is created equal. Turns out there are two very, very different kinds.
Okay, on one hand, you've got sustaining innovation. This is all about making good products even better for your most demanding high-end customers. Think faster chips, higher-res TVs, that kind of thing. And you know what? The established companies, the big guys, they are masters of this game. But then there's disruptive innovation. This is totally different. These are often simpler, cheaper, or just more convenient products that appeal to totally new customers, or maybe ones the big players have just ignored. And in this game, it's the new guys, the entrants, who almost always come out on top.
So why does this happen? Well, it's actually completely logical. I mean, put yourself in their shoes. If you're running a successful company, your entire system is built to listen to your best customers, right? The ones who are happy to pay a premium for better performance. So what do? You chase those juicy profit margins and you keep moving steadily up market. It makes perfect business sense.
But here's the catch. That very same flight to quality creates a massive blind spot. A vacuum opens up at the bottom of the market or for people who just aren't being served at all. And this is the open door that the disruptors just waltz right through, usually with some low-cost business model that the big guys would look at and think is completely unattractive.
And we see this pattern play out again and again throughout business history. I mean, think about it. Steel mini mills? They didn't try to make high-end structural steel. Nah, they started with cheap rebar. Canon didn't challenge Xerox with another giant corporate copier. They came out with these small, simple tabletop copiers. Dell completely bypassed traditional retailers. And discount retailers like Walmart, they thrived by serving customers the big fancy department stores had totally abandoned.
Okay, so if you're trying to find these disruptive opportunities, how do you actually do it? Well, it takes a pretty powerful shift in how you think. You have to stop focusing on product categories or customer demographics, and instead, you need to ask a totally different question. What job is a customer trying to get done?
Christensen tells this fantastic story to explain this idea. So, picture this. A fast food chain wants to sell more milkshakes. They do all the usual market research, right? They ask customers, do you want a chocolate tier, cheaper, chunkier, and nothing works. So, they decided to ask a completely different question. What job are you hiring this milkshake to do?
And what they found was absolutely fascinating. A huge number of their milkshakes were sold before 8:30 in the morning, almost always to people driving by themselves in a car. So the job wasn't satisfy my hunger. The real job was help me deal with my long and boring commutes.
So if you think about it, the job spec for the milkshake was pretty specific. It had to make the commute more interesting. It needed to take a long time to finish. It had to be filling, easy to drink with one hand, and not messy. And once you see it that way, you have this aha moment. You realize the true competition isn't other milkshakes. It's bagels, which get your hands all sticky, or bananas, which are gone in like 60 seconds. The milkshake was just the best tool for that specific job.
But okay, having a great idea, that's not enough. Not even close. Because a company's own internal machinery, like its very DNA, can make it completely incapable of actually doing anything with the disruptive idea, no matter how brilliant it is. Let's dig into why.
This is something called the RPV framework, and you can really think of it as an organization's DNA. So first you have your resources. That's your people, your cash, your brands, all that stuff.
Then you have your processes. That's how you actually work together, your systems for budgeting and planning. And finally, and this is key, you have your values, the criteria you use to decide what's important. Now, a disruptive idea might have all the right resources behind it, but it will absolutely starve if it clashes with the company's established processes and values.
And this right here is such a powerful insight. A company's values are often defined not by what it can do, but by what it cannot do. So for example, let's say a successful company's whole business model requires 40% gross margins to cover its overhead. Well, its values will just automatically reject any new idea that only promises 20% margins, even if that idea could become a massive new market. To them, the project looks like a failure before it even starts, all because the organization's values make it impossible to prioritize.
All right, so what if you could kind of look into the future? Well, one of the most powerful tools for doing that is learning to predict not just where the money is right now, but where it's going to be next.
And this whole theory is based on a concept with a fantastic name: the law of conservation of attractive profits. The idea is actually pretty simple. When profits start to dry up in one part of an industry because, everything's become a commodity, that value doesn't just vanish. Nope. It moves to an adjacent part of the value chain, usually to a place where performance is not yet good enough.
So think about it like this. In the early days of an industry, when the product just isn't very good yet, profit flows to the companies that control the whole shebang, the entire integrated system. Why? Because they can optimize everything to squeeze out the best possible performance. A perfect example of this is the early Apple computers, where controlling both the hardware and the software was absolutely essential to just making the thing work at all. But once the product becomes more than good enough for what most customers need, the game completely changes. All of a sudden, things like speed, convenience, and being able to customize become way more important than just raw performance. The industry breaks apart. It becomes modular, and profit flows away from the guys who assemble the final product and to the specialists who make the really critical components. Think Intel with its processors and Microsoft with its operating system in the PC industry. And look, don't ever underestimate just how hard it is to navigate these shifts. I mean, this number is just stark. A study of over 1,000 companies found that only 16% of them managed to even survive over a 36-year period. Just survive. The pressure to find new ways to grow is absolutely constant and totally unforgiving.
And this chart really shows you why that pressure is so intense. A huge chunk of a company's stock price, it's not based on its current business. Not at all. It's a bet. It's a bet that investors are placing on its ability to generate future growth. And if a company doesn't have a reliable engine for creating new businesses, well, it simply can't deliver on that promise to its investors.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. What are the key takeaways here? First, and most importantly, success isn't just random. It's actually predictable if you use the right frameworks. That means you've got to separate sustaining from disruptive innovation. You need to really deeply understand the job to be done for your customer. You have to match your organization's resources, processes, and values to whatever task you're taking on. And finally, you have to learn to skate to where the profit is going to be, not where it is right now.
And that leaves us with one last question, and this one's for you. Take a hard look at your own industry, maybe even your own company. Can you spot any products or services that have become more than good enough for the average customer? And if you can, where is the profit starting to flow to?